let's get started. So welcome to week 5. This lecture, we're going to talk about navigation and presentation. All right, announcements. So Mini Project 2 Class Planner has been released today. It will be due 2 weeks after its release date, which is today. So it's going to be due on Monday, the 21st at midnight. It's going to have 2 checkpoints. Checkpoint 1 is basically a kind of gauge to keep you on track. And then checkpoint 2 is basically the actual due date. And if you need an extension, please request extension on checkpoint 2, not checkpoint 1, because again, checkpoint 1 is just it's just there to help you keep you on track. And we recommend that you do checkpoints for each week. So by the end of next Monday, you should have finished checkpoint 1, and then by the next of the 21st, you should have finished checkpoint 2. This again, these mini projects, we basically made our homework. So before last semester, every week had a homework. And then this semester, basically we're taking a homework and we're splitting it into 2 weeks. So it's gonna be, the checkpoint 1 is not gonna take you a lot of time if you know the concepts. But again, it's just to help you uh keep on track, right? Yeah, I mentioned that we're gonna try to get homework 1 grades posted on Gradescope by the end of this week, but we're not able to do that, so we're gonna try to do it by the end of this upcoming week. All right. Again, if you have any feedback, please let us know in the attendance form. All right, so for today, the gen for today, we're gonna talk about extensions, and then also how you could create your own custom view modifiers. Next, we'll talk about tab bars, navigation stack, and different kind of UI elements or native UI elements that you could present data to the user in specific circumstances. So with extensions, extensions extend existing types. So they allow you to add functionality to existing types to make them do things that weren't originally designed to do so. You could also add, for example, on a type, computed instance type properties. You could define instance methods, type methods. You could also provide new initializers. You could make an existing type to conform to a protocol and much more. So it's this very powerful kind of way to kind of modify a type. And so what that kind of brings to is basically creating custom view modifiers. So in Cal Finance, if you looked at extension plus um, what's the file called, but it's like ext plus something. And that's where we're going to put all of our kind of custom view modifiers. And one of them is called apply credit card bottom shadow. And again, this is not built into SwiftUI, right? SwiftUI, Apple did not give this to us. But what you see here is that there is a definition of a view modifier there. Okay, so it conforms to a view modifier protocol. And then within here, the view modifier protocol requires you to do this kind of function right here, this body content. And then you could, what this content is basically the view that we apply our custom view modifier to. So in this case, content is going to be passed in this credit card view. Okay. So we're applying this view modifier onto this credit card view. And then content, this variable that we get passed into here is the credit card view. And then on this content, or aka credit card view, we could add our custom modifiers to make it, to add a bottom shadow onto this content, to this view right here. Okay. But this is only one piece of the puzzle. The second piece of the puzzle is to create a method, and then return some view, and then we return this modifier right here. So we create an instance of this struct, so credit card bottom shadow view modifier, and just pass it into this modifier function. And then most importantly, we put this function onto extension or inside extension view. So what this does is that it basically kind of injects this code into this view class or what is protocol, whatever it had originally. Okay. So you can think of this code living it within this view declaration wherever it was defined. Okay. So you could do extensions on your own custom classes, or you could do extensions on existing types like integers or arrays or whatever. So again, you can think of this extension as in any file or anywhere in your code, you can inject pieces of your code into that class, struct, protocol, whatever. Does that make sense? So what this does is that we're saying every single view has this method called apply credit card bottom shadow. Okay, so that's why we're able to do this. So when we type in dot apply, Xcode can autocomplete because it knows that, hey, this is a view, right? And it has apply credit card bottom shadow. And so we're able to do this. Any questions? Okay. All right. And you might be asking, like, why do we need this, right? Why is this helpful? But imagine if you have some really repetitive view modifiers around some kind of view, you could basically abstract it into its own view modifier, and they could use it throughout your whole code base. All right. So actually, we are not going to do this. I'll show an example later on. Yeah. Um, uh, yeah, actually, here, let me just show you what Cal Finance does. So let me just see if I could exit this. Okay, so if I bring up Xcode, let's see. So if you go to Cal Finance here, and then here you could see this. So usually the kind of convention to put your extensions is where you have like an extension, ext plus, and then whatever you're extending onto. So here you can see that I have, again, this view modifier that I've declared here, and then I'm making it available within this extension view, right? And then here I have another view modifier called Indigo Element View Modifier that puts all these view modifiers onto whatever view that I do dot apply indigo background. So if I search up the uh, apply indigo background, you can see here in two places I am using this dot apply indigo background. And again, so basically this is applying it onto balance amount view, right? And what that does is that I am getting balance amount view, that whole thing as content. And then on that, I'm doing all of this, my custom stuff, right? And then here is this dot apply indigo background is being exposed or defined right here. Okay. And so again, what it's doing is that you can, if you option click on the view, or actually go to definition. So again, this is a Swift UI. Oh my God. Oh, uh, 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 okay. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay. But if you jump to definition, it basically like injects this code into that. Okay. Does that make sense? Basically, you could have extension anywhere. You could have it like in whatever file. It doesn't matter. Yes. What is that modifier parentheses? Yeah. Good question. So let's do option click. It applies a modifier to a view and returns a new view. So it basically just, again, this is our struct here. But you just need to do this to return, like to create the modifier actually. So you can't just have... No, you cannot do this. Yeah, you can't just do that. You cannot do that. Yeah. You need it's just a convention. Okay. Yeah, good question. All right. So does this make sense of how you can create your own custom view modifiers? All right, awesome. All right, let's head back to the slides. Okay. So next, let's gonna talk about tab bars, right? So I think you guys have seen tab bars a lot, right? So tab bar is referring to the bottom kind of discrete sections on your app, on an app, for example. And depending on the orientation, right, iOS displays it differently. So you can have multiple tabs here. Now the question is, what happens if you have a lot of tabs? What does iOS do? Well, on the last one right here, it will add like a more button, and you could like it displays like a list that you could go to different other additional tabs there. Okay, and the kind of okay, so we use the tab bar to support navigation, not to provide actions, right? We don't want, right, when the user clicks on a tab to do some like to run code or to run, it's not a button, right? It is for navigation. And you want to make sure that it's visible when people navigate to different areas, because if, for example, I jump to a tab and the tab bar disappears, how in the world do I get back to a different tab or the previous state that I was in? Um, and you want to use as minimum tabs that you can. So you don't want to, again, jam the whole tab bar with like 10 tabs, right? So make sure you're able to kind of distinctly define what sections your app can be, and then put it in there. And a convention is that you want to use as succinct of a term for each tab title, right? On the bottom right here, it will display the symbol, and also you can display the tab name. And you don't want a really long tab name, right? It's usually like home or find or like some other kind of really short term that or object that your app supports, like recents or something like that. And you want to use a badge to communicate things unobtrusively. So what I mean by that is, I don't know if you noticed, but some apps, they have like a little notification like number here, right? That shows like, hey, there's like your inbox or there's something that, that requires your attention. So you could also do that really easily. And and so here is basically a link on the bottom. If you go to slides, this refers to Apple's human interface guidelines. And this is basically kind of Apple's um, kind of guide of UI stuff, right? And it has a lot of different kind of features that it has. For example, colors, right? What dark mode, light mode, how should your app looking like that? Different kind of layouts, right? What layout should you use or what things that you need to pay attention to? And there's a lot more here, and it's very easy to go overwhelmed. You can also, again, look at the navigation, kind of, again, we're going to go through a presentation, but there's a lot of things that if you're interested in UI, UX, this is a great resource to look into, especially in your final project as well, okay? But that is a resource that you could look into. All right. So let's take a look at building a sample app from scratch. And this app is basically, this is like a class manager. So it displays a list of students, and I could do kind of a different kind of actions on that. So if I just run this piece of code right here, if I run to open the simulator, just delete this, comment this really quickly. All right. So this is what my content view looks like, right? It's just displays a list of my students. And then here I am basically, let's not do that. Let's just display the list, the name of the students. So student dot name for now. Okay, rerun this. All right, so again, it's just a very simple list of, yeah, why is it so big? Wow. I don't know why. Okay, this is just a list of my students. Okay. So, all right. So now how do I support tabs? And I don't, why is this so big? What? Um, yeah, I can't show you the tabs. Okay, I just have to resort to this then. Okay. I don't know why it's so much stuff. All right, so let's go back here. So to basically support tab, it's really easy. So in this, right, remember this is basically the entry point into the app. When I click run, this is the first thing that gets run. How do I know this? Well, it's because it has this at main kind of identifier here. And this is, again, it's not a view, it is an app, and it's has a scene. And then here we have a window group, and a window group is basically for example, on iOS, there's only a single window, but for Mac OS or iPad OS, you could generate multiple windows, and that kind of manages that. But we don't need to worry about this. But to create a tab bar, it's very easy. We just use the tab view in SwiftUI. And then for each tab, we have our view that we have here. So right now, I just have a content view. And let's say we have another view, it just like, it's settings, and it just displays as text settings right now. Now, to basically configure the kind of the icon and also the title, the tab title, you can see here Xcode suggests this dot tab item modifier. And then within here, I can supply a label. And that label has two elements. It has the kind of label title, and it also gives me this system image parameter that I could put in. And this one, I'm just going to use this SF symbol. Remember that SF symbol is a app that you can have here, and it's basically a lot of pre-made Apple system font symbols that you could use right within Xcode. Um, and then on settings here, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm just copy this right here, paste that in here. And then here, instead of students, it's settings. And then here, I found this gear shape icon. So if I run this, you can see that I have two tabs now. Okay. Now, I don't know why, if you like, in In portrait, um, it will basically the title will be underneath the icon. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly why it's doing this. Okay, I have to resort to doing this now. Okay, like that. Okay. So that is basically how it works. And so again, this is content view. If I click here, that is my text setting. Does that make sense? Okay. So that is and yeah, that is basically how you could do tabs or support tabs within the app. It's so simple. It's just tab view, and then on each view, each section, you put this tab item. And another thing that I would like to mention is that each single tab that you have, you want to be like discrete. You don't want to have it should be a separate kind of thing, right? You don't want to have, students here and then another tab like very similar to the students tab, right? You want to have kind of discrete sections like that. All right, so that is how you would do to create tabs in SwiftUI. Next, I want to talk about the navigation stack. So, uh, so navigation stack is how you're going to support hierarchical app navigation. And a really common example, I guess really prominent example is the settings app in iOS. So for example, here on the home kind of page, you have a list of different sections here, and we know how to do this with a list and also section, right, within a list. And when you tap on a section or a kind of list item within that section, it will basically push on the corresponding or respective view onto whatever you had, right? And then you, for example, if you click on, another thing here, auto lock, it will push on top of that auto lock. And then how do I get back? I could either press here on this back button to basically push it back out. So now I'm on this general view. And then to get back to my main settings view, I press it again to go back, right? And I don't know if you know, but also in iOS, you don't need to always click here. You could also swipe from the left of your screen and pull to the right. And it also does that back dismiss gesture, okay? Um, so if you have taken CS61B, this is stacks. And a stack is kind of a data structure in which we call it's a last in, first out. So what that means is that the last in that we put into the stack is the first one to get removed from the stack. Okay. And for example, here is basically a visualization of a stack. So here, the first operation that I have initially was empty, right? I push A to the stacks. Now it's on the stack right here. The next operation I do is I push B to the stack. So now B is on top of A. And then the next operation I do is push C to stack. So I have C on top of B, B on top of A. Next, what I do is I pop C off the stack. So again, the last item that I pushed on the stack was C, and it's the first one to be evicted out. So when I do pop C, that means to remove the last item that I popped or pushed to the stack, which is C. It gets removed like that. All right, the next operation I do is pop B, or just pop in general, and then we'll pop B off the stack. And then finally, when I do pop A, it will just revert back to it originally, which was empty. Okay. And so a stack has two operations. So two interfaces that it could use. It's either push, pop, and also you could also examine how many contents you have in a stack. And different stack also allows you to basically view or peek to the top, I guess the top of the stack, and so forth. Okay. So that is a stack. Any questions? Yes. Mhm.
Only use some C instead of some V.
Some C instead of some V. Okay. What do you mean?
Oh, like in the example, like
Uh-huh.
when you're showing us like tab view, you know how the it's instead of bar body some view, it's bar body some C.
Okay. Yes. So you're talking about this, right? Okay. Yeah, this is okay. This is the entry point of the app. This is special. Okay. So here you defined this is your app in itself. It just represents the structure and behavior of an app. And then a scene is basically again, this is on iPad OS or Mac OS, you can support multiple scenes. Since you can generate multiple windows. I mean, a window group is just to manage those different windows and scenes. But again, you don't need to worry about this. This is not a view. This is a special kind of, again, your app kind of configuration stuff. Okay. Again, so this is again a special, again, it's not a view, it's not a Swift UI view. This is like a special app entry point. Okay. So when I click run, this the first thing that gets, gets seen, right? Because this is the top of our view hierarchy. We have our content view, we have our settings, right? And that kind of defines, as you can see, we have this content view, and then we have settings like that. Does that make sense? Okay, awesome, awesome. Cool. Any questions with the stack? Does this make sense? You could think of it, a good analogy, I think, is like a laundry basket, right? You put your clothes one by one into it, but you don't put, I mean, you can theoretically, but you would, to remove a shirt or laundry, you would do the most top one, right? You won't reach underneath and pull it out, and then the whole thing kind of, it's messy, right? So yeah, so you can think of this as basically our views, right? When we push A, B, C, that is when we slide those views on top of our main settings view. And then when we go back, we're popping them off of the stack. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. All right. Again, it's to present a stack of views over a root view. In that example, the root view is our settings view. And we can add views to the top of the stack by clicking or tapping a navigation link. We remove views using a built-in platform-appropriate controls, back button, swipe on iOS, and depending on the platform, again, there's different kind of system controls that allow us to do so. To create navigation links, we associate a view with a data type by adding a navigation destination modifier, in which, again, I'll demonstrate in a moment. All right, so let's go back to our demo. So back in Xcode, all right, let's go to our content view. And we're going to do something a little bit differently. So now, but before we do this, I want to show you an example of creating an extension. So here I am basically extending on the array type. So to do so, I would do extension array. And then what I want to do is that I want to sort an array of students by their name in increasingly lexicographically ordered. So what that means is that I want to sort a list of student objects, and a student is defined right here. Again, just like name, age, emoji, blah, blah, blah. And I want to sort these students by their name in increasingly lexicographically order. Okay. So to do so, I would, again, I'm extending on the array type where an element in that array is of type student. And then within here, I supply my own custom method called sort by name. And then it returns an array of students. And then within here, I basically return sorted, and then this. Okay. So sorted sorts this array by this condition. So I want to sort basically, in increasing order, and sorted returns a new array out. Okay. Does this make sense? So what I'm able to do is on every single array where each element is a student, I have this method. Okay. So if I go back to my content view on this, so if I do option click, I can see it's an array of students. So what I can do here is that now I could dot sort. Xcode knows that this our custom function is exposed, and I could run that. So now if I somehow show in Xcode previews, I should expect to see that all of the student names are in increasing order lexicographically. Like so. Okay. Yeah. All right. Does that any questions with that? Okay. Okay, perfect. So again, this is really powerful. For example, I could do this on an integer, I could do a string, I could do whatever, and then I could, add my own custom functionality. So you know how in some languages you're like that is just terrible. Like I wish I could have my own custom method to do really powerful stuff. Well, in Swift, you could do so. Okay. All right. So now let's support basically pushing or supporting creating a navigation stack within this context. To do so, real easy. You wrap it around. You'd also right click here, embed in whatever, and then I just can change it right there. Okay. So I don't need to like tab. I'm lazy. I don't want to tab and everything. So I can do that as well. So navigation stack. Again, this is navigation stack, and this is the first, like the main root view of the navigation stack. And also, you know how sometimes in apps there's like a title here, like for example, home or like for you or whatever here, right? So with navigation stack, on the root view within navigation stack, there's a view modifier called navigation title. And then here I'm gonna do my class. And then if I refresh this, it will do that. Okay. So this is kind of again. And then if I scroll up, you could see that it changes into this inline version of it. Okay. Now, if I want to, if I want to make this to be always inline, I could do navigation bar title display mode dot inline, and it will force it to be inline. That. Okay. So again, this only comes with if you're in a navigation stack. Now, again, when I click on the students, I want to push uh the student name, like a new view with the student name. So to do so, on each list row, I would supply a navigation link. And as you can see here, it has different kind of constructors that you could use. For this one, for now, I just use the student name. This is a string. And then for the value, I'm going to associate that row with the student object. Okay. So now, the next step is to do navigation destination for a specific type. Okay. So in this case right here, I will do student.self. This syntax means that this is the student type. Okay. And then the destination you could supply here. And then let me just, so this, for each student, I want to push this new view right here. Okay. So what I'm doing here is that for each of these, again, for each of these rows in the list, you can see that SwiftUI added this disclosure indicator because it knows it's a navigation link. So for each student, for each navigation link, it associates that to a student object, right? The instance. Now here, what this view modifier is doing is that when I click on a navigation link, it will check to see if that associated student or associated value is a type student. And if it is, you can get the student back and you could push something onto the stack. Okay. So again, these are students. So when I click on this, it pushes this, and I can get back this value via this closure right there. Okay. So you can see, and now I've pushed something else, it pushes back. And now I could tap here, or again, I could swipe back like that, right? Again, these are all built into SwiftUI. Yes. No, it's just this. For that, I was just kind of giving a visualization, understanding what a stack is. But you could effectively think of when I click this, that's a push. If I click this, that's a pop. And you can nest these onto each other, right? This view might have another navigation list of navigation links, and then it just keeps on, like that. All right. So, that is that. Okay. So let's go back to these slides. So there's also a thing you could do called programmatic navigation, in which you can navigate programmatically. So depending on the data type, you could push a different view. And you can manage the state of a navigation stack by initializing the stack with a binding collection of data. And you could read and write to the collection to observe and alter the stack state. And it allows you to navigate to different data types, like I mentioned before. So you're not limited just pushing students. You could do teachers, you could do multiple things, different data types, integers, strings, whatever. Um, and if you only have one type of data, you could just simply use a list. And so let's take a look at what I mean by this. Okay, so all right. So right now, again, this is all initiated by user input, right? Now, what if I want to programmatically encode, actually manually push something onto the stack or pop something off of the stack? So the modification needed is to create a new state variable, and you make it's of type navigation path. Okay. And what this does is that it basically keeps track of all the different things that are on the stack and off the stack, or it keeps the things of what is on the stack currently. And then on the navigation stack, you just pass in this path, and it's a binding. So what that means is that when the user clicks on something, it will append to this navigation path. When a user pops something off of it, it's able to modify this. So again, this is a binding, right? So whatever Apple navigation stack internally is doing, it's able to modify what I have here, which is a source of truth. So, okay. So now, okay, so now okay, so what I want to do is that when I push a string, I want to show the major of that. So I'm gonna push a view that shows kind of information about um the major. And this is the random major view. So it just basically displays information of a major. In this case, I have eeks kind of represent, and it's just like that. It's just really simple view. And then if I push something else, it just has something differently like that. Okay. Okay. So back to content view. So now again, I just can do navigation destination for what type string.self. And then here I get back my string, and this is the major. And then I'm pushing, what am I pushing? I'm pushing the random major view with a major. Okay. Now, I don't, so a lot of apps, right? You could do actions within here, right? There's buttons that you could do and stuff like that. So this section right here is what we called the toolbar. Okay. So to create a toolbar, what we could do is that we could use the toolbar view modifier. And within here, I could basically create toolbar items, and I could place them either to the left or to the right. So here I've created an item that I want to put to the top bar leading. Remember that leading refers to the left in this case, and trailing refers to right. It depends on the language. If you're Hebrew, if the user sets the language to Hebrew or Arabic, leading be right, and then trailing be left. Okay. So the content here is basically the view itself, and I'm basically doing a button here. And then here, this button, I will want to okay, so for this button right here, I want to add a new student. I want to present a student later on. So I'm just going to create the state variable where I can say is presenting add new student view. It's false. And then here it just basically toggles that is presenting student view. And then within here, my button, I'm just using a very simple image with the system name of plus. That's okay. And it will show up right there like that. Okay. So the next one I want to do is the major. So two bar item placement dot top bar trailing. And then for the contents, I want to basically still have a button here. And then this button, what it's gonna look like is a graduation cap. So system name, uh, graduation cap. That. And then also want to have another button that appends a random student onto this list. And now to basically group multiple toolbar items to the left or the leading or trailing, what you could do is that now you could have a toolbar item group, and it basically creates a grouping of multiple two-bar items. And for this one right here, I want to do two top bar trailing, and the content here, I don't need to create additional two-bar items anymore. I just use the like actual button views since I'm in this group. So now I could have the second button down here uh, that appends a random student to this list. So this one right here, I will do a image system name dot dice, and then the kind of behavior of generating random student, like random student. I am going to pick a random student from the list. Currently, I'm just going to add it to um, the uh, the list. And then here I will do uh, Oh, I think okay, never mind. Um, so I okay, actually I want to push to the um uh I want to push a new view onto the stack. Sorry. So I will push this random student onto uh the stack. This is called nav path. Okay. And then for here, for this one right here, for the random major, I want to push the string onto the stack. So let random major, and then I have this helper method on the class manager. What do I have here? It's called class manager dot get random major. Then here on navigation path, nav path, I will append the string. So what I'm doing here is that when I click on this graduation cap, it will append the string to the nav path. And when I click on the dice, it will append an actual student on the nav path. And depending if it's a string or student, it will display the corresponding view. So again, this right here is a string. It will display this, the random major view, because I'm pushing a string onto the navigation path right here. If I go back, if I click on the dice, what should it do? It should print this one right here because I'm appending a student onto the nav path right there. Does that make sense? So depending on what type I'm appending to nav path, I can basically show the respective pushed view. Okay. All right, so that is a demonstration of programmatic navigation. So like within code, you could also, it does this. So you don't need to have a button right this. You could somewhere you could do nav path dot append, but yeah. So any questions? Yes.
In destination,
Yes.
the student dot self,
Mhm.
the student, like, that's different from the student, for instance.
Yes.
You get the student, no, it's capitalized. Like,
Where do I get this?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so this is basically a Swift syntax. This is saying the type.
oh, it's so strange.
It's not a string. This is basically the actual type itself, the student type. So remember, right here. So when you create your custom structs or classes, what you're doing is actually creating a custom type, right? So here we're saying when I when navigation path gets pushed or appended by a student instance, is that a student type? If it is, get that instance. This is a student instance right here. Get it back, and then you could pass into your custom view, whatever. Okay, good question. All right. Let's go back to the slides and go to the final topic, which is presentation. So there's different kind of presentation. I guess again, this is just kind of a subset of it. There's a lot more. But these are kind of the main things that you generally see. The first one is action sheets. So action sheet is a modal view that presents choices related to action people initiate. I don't know if you guys see this a lot, but sometimes it's like, for example, if you delete an account or something, you just like there's different, it shows different actions if you want to do so. For example, like it confirms like do you actually want to delete an account and something like that. That's one way to do that. The next is alerts. This is pretty self-explanatory. You could present or alert to the user with the title, the alert content, and different buttons that you could map operations to. Page controls. This is basically on a tab view. There's a view modifier that basically allows you to do this, where you could basically present different pages or different tabs, and the user can scrub between this. Again, this is all system UI that iOS does. And you could hold your finger and you could like, drag in left and right. And this is seen on your home screen, actually, I think. So actually, I think they might have replaced it. Let me take a look. But let me go back here. Like this thing right here. So this is like a tab view. And then you could hold down and you could basically drag to go to different tabs like that. So that is what it looks like. Um, and then here we have also popovers. A popover is a transit view that appears above other content when people click or tap or control an interactive area. I don't think iOS has this natively. iPad OS and Mac OS has it, but I don't think iOS has this. Um, Scroll view is basically allows people to view content that's larger than the view boundaries. And the difference between a scroll view versus a list is that a list has a bunch of built-in functionality that is for example, it has different it creates like a border of your content, right? That we've seen earlier. And just like the stylistic differences as well. And you can also have scroll views that do horizontally instead of vertically. Sheets are, I think we have seen sheets before. It basically presents your view on top of whatever current view that you're seeing, like that. And different sheets that you could present different kind of indices, different like for example, this sheet is presented at this kind of level. You have sheets that do medium, and you have sheets that like go all the way to the top. And it usually you do sheets when you want to perform a more detailed or scope task that is closely related to current context. For example, let's say I want to present like settings, or you can also present settings via sheets if your app, makes sense, or you could do like an edit. If you want to edit something on the main content view, you can present a sheet to do that. All right, any questions between these kind of UIs? Okay. Now we're not going to go through all of these UI elements, but we're going to give you kind of the main ones. So sheet is, again, we've seen this before. It has this parameter called is presented, which is a binding to a Boolean value that determines if it should be presented or not. On dismiss, you can also basically put in your custom code that executes when the user dismisses the sheet, and the actual content itself. What does the sheet look like? Alerts has, again, there's many different versions of view modifier alerts. There's just one of them. There is a title where you can present a text string to use as a title of the alert. The is presented, same thing for the sheet for is the alert presented or not. Actions, this is where you put buttons to basically give the user actionable UI. And then the message is basically the actual center of the alert. This is a scroll view. Again, this is just a whole scrollable vertical list of items here. Um, and yeah, let's take a look at how we could, again, finish our little app that we have here. All right, so the next kind of thing I want to do is to add alert on this button right here. And when I toggle this, or when I press on this button, I want to show this add new student view. And it's basically like a form. It's a form of different text fields that the user can add into and stuff like that. It's very simple. So I go back to my content view. So to support sheets, what I can do here is that I can do sheet is presented. Again, this is presented here is I have is presenting add new student view. That's our state variable. And if it's true, what do I present? I present add new student view. So when I click on here, it presents that sheet. And here on the new student view, there's a lot of different view modifiers that you can use. You could change the presentation corner radius of a sheet. I love my corner radiuses. If you are not a big fan of corner radiuses, you can remove that and just gives you that system look. And you could also, again, set different indents levels. I think like presentation dedents, it's called. And you could like set a kind of like a fraction amount of like how many percentage of how much you want to it goes and stuff like that. So again, there's a lot of different view modifiers. Again, I'm not going to go through all of them, but you could play around with them on your own. But here, again, you want to make sure, again, in your UI that the user doesn't enter like garbage data, right? So if there's nothing in there, right, I don't want to create a new student. So when a user try to add a new student, I want all these fields to have something in them. So here for this add button, right, in my toolbar on the trailing, I have this button where I have when the user presses the button, I do a guard statement. So what I'm saying here is I'm checking to see if all of these uh, entries or these text fields are not empty. So if they're not empty, I do code to do stuff down here. Okay. So again, this checks to see if the new student name is not empty. So if this is true, um, sorry, if this is false, it will turn true, and then it will, wait, let me see here. Yeah, so if this is, uh, wait a second. Uh, yeah, so if the student is not empty, it will go down here. So to create a alert, all I need to do is to have like a, again, to show or not alert. So I do show error alert, and I'll set this to false. And then here, if all of these are false, what I do is that I will do this else case like that. So again, if this is true, I make it to be false. If this is true, this will be false. So again, if all of these conditions are false, I will show the error alert. And then here on, you could put it anywhere, honestly. So I'm just gonna put it here. And this is, so I'm using, again, there's a lot of different options for an alert, as you can see here. But the one I'm gonna use is basically with a title key and then a the actions and then the message. So for the alert here, the title would be error occurred or something. Uh, and then here for the is presented, this is my show error alert. And then here I will have my actions. So button action. Um, this will dismiss the hmm, don't know why that's happening. Okay, sorry about that. And then here will be the text to say okay. And then final parameter here is the message, and that would be text fields cannot be empty. So now if I go back to the content view, if I click on the plus button, come on. If I click add, it will show the alert like that. So the title, the message, and the buttons right here. Okay. All right, so that is an alert. Next I want to do is show you the scroll view. So on the student detail view, this is when I want to present a student instead of I'll replace it. So right now we're just showing the student name. I want to show, I need to update this now, 20 years old now. So, okay, this is not, let's have a junior. Okay, I have, okay, there we go. All right. Anyways, I want to show like a scrollable list of hobbies for each student. So under here, I will basically do a scroll view, and then you could determine the axis. You could do vertical, horizontal. I want to show it. I want to do a horizontal scroll view, and then here it will just basically I have a whole H stack that contains all my items. So for each I have these hobbies, which are strings. I identify them by they're hashable, so I just identify them by their hash value. And then for each hobby, okay, I know we're running out of time. Okay, so just for now, for this sake, I'll just do um, hobby. I'll just present the hobby itself, and then on my content view, I will present instead of the text, I'll do student detail view. So student detail view for the student. So now if I click on a student, I'll get a scrolling list of things right here. All right, so and also there's many more view modifiers. For example, here, if you don't want the scrolling indicators, so you can do scrolling indicators to be hidden. So now if I go back here, there will be no scrolling indicators on the bottom of the scroll view. Um, come on. So yeah, there's no be the scrolling indicator is just gone now. Okay, so